I don't know how much longer I'm going to last at Lowe's. Someone said in the comments that it sounds like things might be escalating, and I think they might be right. Things are starting to get out of hand. It started on Wednesday. It was my turn to stock the garden centre, and I was out there stocking the mulch because there was no time for anyone to work on their garden in December in the northeast. No lie, we get some crazy things in right now. Just the other day we got 2 pallets of weed whackers. I mean, why? It wasn't even for Black Friday. But that isn't the point. So I was out in the garden centre, like I said, stocking mulch and trying to ignore the thing in the garden centre laughing at me, when it abruptly stopped. I looked up into the rafters and I heard it scamper up over onto the roof. Confused by the sudden change, I walked out into the open section of the centre, trying to see where it had scampered off to, when I then heard really heavy breathing. I looked over towards where the sound seemed to be coming from, and there he was, the Watcher, standing on the other side of the fence. I stopped dead. I've never seen the Watcher this close up, and apparently the only one who ever has was never seen again. He has never approached the store before, but there he was, staring at me. I can tell he was staring at me because while his face was still hidden in the shadows of his high collar and hat, I could see light gleaming off of his cold, hateful eyes. Now, I don't scare easily. I can get spooked and unnerved, but scared? No. I'll tell you what though, while I was frozen where I stood, looking at this tall tower of evil, and evil is what this thing was, that if I hadn't already dropped a loaf earlier, then my pants would have been a bakery. Never before had I felt such a presence. I could feel my heart pounding so fast that I thought it would explode out of my chest, but at the same time I felt as though my lungs refused to work, as if my breath wouldn't leave me as to not be in the same space as the Watcher. Somehow I was able to get my foot to move as I took a slow step backwards. Then he moved. He didn't move much, mind you. He just grabbed the fence, but it was fast. So fast that I didn't even see him do it. One moment his hand was next to him, and then bam, he had his fingers wrapped around the chain. The movement and noise made me nearly jump out of my shoes. I almost bolted right then and there, but his hand caught my attention, and he held it there for a second more. At first I thought he was wearing gloves, but then I noticed the long grey fingernails. His skin matched his nails, except it was a darker grey. I could also see that he was squeezing the fence. Has ever driven by a Lowe's store, they will understand that there is a tall fence that encloses the garden centre, and that it's made out of a pretty sturdy chain link. I mean, yes, you could cut it with a fence cutter, but that's what they're made for. Well, the Watcher had his fingers through the chain link holes, and as he was squeezing, he was bending the metal. I could actually hear the metal protesting against his strength. As Biff Tannen said, I made like a tree and got out of there. I bolted for the entrance, closed the doors behind me and locked them. I called Mike and had him meet me in the back office. I told him what had happened, and he said that he's never heard of the Watcher ever doing anything like that. Fuck, Mike said. He's never even set foot on the property that I know of. We left the door locked and closed until it was nearly 6, when Mike had to open the doors. He told me that he went to check out where I'd seen the Watcher. He said he was gone, but he could see where he had twisted the fence up. The next thing to happen was on Friday night. It wasn't much, but somehow I think that it might be a lot more important than it seems. I was going to take my lunch break and I had stepped into the elevator. Now I know that it's a pretty quick walk up the steps to the break room and offices, but my feet usually start to hurt around the time I take my break, and of course, really I'm just lazy. I take the stairs downstairs all the time though. I feel that it's a waste to take the elevator downstairs because I at least have gravity on my side. Plus it's a lot faster to just run down. Anyway, I got onto the elevator and I was going to press the second floor button, when I suddenly had to stop and stare where there was normally only 2 buttons. There now seemed to be 3. This new button wasn't marked, but I could tell that it was very old and worn. Yeah, I have seen and read way too many horror movies and stories in my life. There was no way in hell I was pressing that button. I pressed up and went on my break and tried to forget about the new button. Thing is, it's always shown up now at least once a night. No one else has mentioned it, so I don't know if I'm the only one seeing it, or if everyone else does as well, but I guess they're just used to it. I asked Mike about it and he had no idea what I was talking about, and neither did John or Steve. So for now, that's the nope button to fuck that floor. Now this next thing, if I ever see it again, I'm done. It happened while I was stocking in the electrical department. Let me tell you, when it comes to stocking Lowe's, there are 4 areas that are a complete and total bitch to stock. Tool world, hardware, lighting and electrical. Each one of these areas has a shit ton, and I mean a shit ton of little items that are, half the time, not even in their correct place. Or they are, but it just hasn't been changed in the system, so you spend at least a third of the time just trying to locate a type of outlet, or screw, or bowl, or some other little bagged or boxed thing just to find that they've been moved to an end cap, or they're just a new item. It's a real pain in the ass. Anyway, I'm getting off topic again. I was in electrical trying to locate some tiny fuses. I was getting frustrated because even though I was where the fuses were supposed to be, I couldn't find the one I was holding. So I decided to walk the aisles and see if I might happen to come across them. As I walked to aisle 31, that's the main aisle that runs down the centre of the floor, I saw a large reddish-brown pool of something on the floor that wasn't there before. I also noticed that whatever made the pool had been dragged away and into the last lumber aisle, which also happens to be the last aisle of the store. Annoyed about it because I'm thinking that John or Steve might have been leaking something off a pallet and not realised, I followed the smeared trail and I could not have been more wrong. As I turned the corner, I stopped. What I saw was not Steve or John. What I saw was a nightmare. At first I couldn't make it out. It looked like a moving pile of wet clothes, and there was a squishing sound that emanated from it every time it appeared to move an inch forward. I still couldn't make out what it was as it kept slithering forward. I finally grasped what I was seeing, and it was impossible. I took a step back and bumped a stack of blue buckets. You know the ones. We have them located at the end of every aisle, the 5-gallon ones. Anyway, I bumped a stack of those and they went down, causing a loud enough racket to wake the dead. I looked down at the buckets, then back at the thing. It had lifted its head and was looking at me. It was just what I was afraid of. Someone's skin. It was just fucking skin. No internal anything. It was flabby and squishy and twisted with reddish-brown liquid oozing out of its holes and from between its wrinkled folds. It had stopped moving, and its head was twisted around looking at me with eyeless holes. Its mouth opened wide and more liquid flowed slowly out, and somehow it made a deep moan. I took a step back and the thing came at me. Dear God, it was fast. Almost too fast, as it just seemed to slither all over itself as it raced towards me. To give you an idea of what it was like, imagine the 1980s version of the Blob coming at you, except of it being a pink snotty thing. It was someone's goddamn skin. You better believe I fucking beat feet getting the fuck out of there. I think it was the first time I ever really screamed out of real fear. I ran as fast as I could, and let me tell you, for someone as big as I am, you'd be surprised at how the right motivation can really get you moving. I found Mike in the dock office with Steve and John. It took me a while to catch my breath and compose myself before I told them what had happened. Lucky for me, they of course knew about the strange shit that's been happening, as they've been at Lowe's longer than I have, but this one was a new one even for them. I led them back to where I saw the skin. Mike was pissed about the wet mess, as it was just more work we'd have to do to clean it up, but when he reached that last aisle, they peeked around the corner and saw nothing. The skin thing was gone, but it had left a trail. Not much of one though. They could see where it had turned around and come at me, but we could see that it had stopped after I'd bolted. Then the trail slid off to the side and literally ended at the base of the wall. It was like it had just slipped through the cove joint, leaving a build-up of what weird liquid was coming out of it. "What's that?" John asked when he saw something in the liquid. It looked like one of our name tags. Mike took out a pen and flipped it over to see the name. Trevor. Mike stood up fast when he saw that name. "No," he whispered. "It can't be." "Can't be what?" I asked. "Trevor," Mike explained. Trevor was the name of the man that the arm had grabbed. Like I said, I don't know how much longer I'm going to stick around here. When you almost shit yourself twice in the same week, it really makes you think about your life choices. I'm going to stick around for now, but I already told Mike that if I even see self-moving skin again, I'm just going to walk out the doors and not look back. A person has to have limits, and I think I might be at mine. That's it for now. I'll keep you updated if anything new happens, or if I quit. And remember, have a Lowe's safe day.